This is a tiny deserted island in the middle of an infinite ocean, and I have to survive here for 100 days in Minecraft Hardcore. There only is one tree on this island, and I don't have food, and he doesn't count. My goal is not only to survive, but I also want to build a cozy base with everything I need. And of course, not to forget, I need to get full diamond gear. Sounds easy, right? Well, it's not. Relax and get your snacks, because this is how I survived 100 days in Minecraft Hardcore on a deserted island. The first thing you do when you spawn on an island is, of course, chopping the only tree on the island to get some saplings. Then I made a crafting table and some sticks, made the first pickaxe, and gathered all the seeds that I could get. While I was waiting on the saplings, I made the island flat and dug the first hole for the mine. Then I collected 3 cobblestones so I could make the first stone pickaxe. I farmed more cobblestone, and with the cobblestone, I made a stone hoe. I planted my first 3 seeds and expanded the island with dirt. Looks good to me. After that, I crafted a sword, axe, and a furnace. I placed the furnace next to the crafting table, but then I saw the first piece of coal in the ocean. I didn't realize I was underwater for too long, so I took my first damage. The first sapling had grown into a tree on the island, so I immediately cut the tree down again to place a new sapling. I saw my first prey in the water, so I took him and his whole family down. I said that too cheerfully. It was nighttime, so me and my sheep spent the night waiting until it became day 2. The first thing I did on day 2 was chopping the tree. I immediately placed the 2 saplings I got from the tree, and now it's time to build the first house. It will be a very simple house because I don't have room to build big things yet. This house is temporary because of course an entire village has to be built. One of those houses in the village will become my house, but now I need a house for when night falls. I placed a torch for light in the nights, I made a door, placed it, and gathered some sand for the windows. I need exactly 6 pieces of sand. After I farmed it, I put it in the furnace. I waited until it was done and placed the glass. Now I had to wait again and repeat what I just did. I went in the water, but then I had my first boss fight, but he didn't stand a chance. The real reason why I got in the water was to get some food. I cooked up the fish with sticks and crafted the first chest so I could put my junk away. I chopped the last tree of the day and then I called it a day. But first I needed to get my friend inside, and then we waited until the sun came up. It is now day 3, and the first thing to do is replant the seeds. Then I went into the mine for the first time. I found the first iron, but when I mined a little bit further, I found a really big cave. I saw more iron and took it with me, but then I spotted my first diamonds, but I couldn't mine it yet, so I went back upstairs and left the diamonds in the cave, but not for long. After the island had expanded a bit, I melted the iron and made an iron pick. I cooked some fish so I don't die. I brought my friend in and waited until day 4. Day 4 arrived, and it was time to get the diamonds I saw in the cave. After I mined the first 4 diamonds, I saw more diamonds above me, and of course I took them with me. This vein was even bigger than the last one. That's 3, number 4, and there we have 5 and 6. I mined some coal and had a massive fight with a creeper. And this is the moment where you all came for. Me almost dying on day 4. I survived and took the iron with me. It was time to leave the mine and go back to work because it was now time to make a tree farm. It's not really a farm, it's more a place where they grow. I made a space for the trees on the water so it won't take space away on the island. It looks very simple, and it is. I placed the saplings down, and now we just have to wait for them to grow. It is now time to go inside and wait until the sun comes up with my sheep. The sun came up, and I came to the conclusion that I had to have a bed. So with the iron I mined from the cave, I made a pair of scissors to get the wool off the sheep without killing it. Then I planted some new seeds. While I waited for new wool, I collected some dirt to make the island a little bit bigger. After I did that, I decided to make the tree farm a little bit more beautiful, even though this farm will be temporary. The sheep was ready to get sheared again, so now I have enough wool to make the first bed of this hardcore. Now I don't have to wait through the whole night with Lil Bro. I dug some dirt that I could easily access so I didn't have to get back in the water. Because at this point, I even have to watch out for water zombies. I expanded the island a little more, and now it's time to sleep in the bed for the first time. It's a beautiful day with a rainbow, and the first thing I'm going to do today is shear my sheep. I relocated the seeds because I expanded the island. And now that this is done, it's time to make a diamond pickaxe. I also made iron boots because I had a little bit of iron left. It's only day 6 and we already have a diamond pickaxe because of the big cave under the islands. I almost died because I was trying to get the diamond vein in the water, but I built myself in with cobblestone and survived. I went back up with the diamonds and gathered some cobblestone on the way to the surface. Then I came across some lapis, and I'm going to need that later on for enchanting. It became night, so day 6 is officially over. The next day I started with murdering fish. But then I saw a water ruin sticking out of the water, so I immediately went there to look for loot. When I opened the chest, there was some coal, a fishing rod with mending, and some wheat. I took it all with me and cooked the fish that I killed. I grew grass with bone meal and used it for new seeds and decoration. I only got 2 seeds, so I planted them. The island is still a ugly island, so I decided to decorate it a little bit. I made a path and started with the first build on this island. And the first build is going to be a spot where I can go fishing with the new fishing rod. The dock is going to be built with wood, so I need to keep using the tree farm often because I am going to need a lot of wood for all the builds that I'm going to do later on. While I was building it became night and we don't have lights around the island yet, so I need to be careful with mobs. It is time to move the furnace, crafting table, and the chest into my massive house. This house is of course pure for protection against mobs, and later on I'm going to build a beautiful cozy house. I chopped down all the trees and replaced them with saplings. The proportion of my little beach didn't seem right to me, so I replaced some sand with dirt. I filled up the hole and yeah, that looks much better to me. I started with fishing, but I only caught some fish, so I quit fishing. I know that sounds weird. I put some blocks in the chest by the fishing dock because the chest inside was getting to full. I gathered more diamonds in the mine and slayed a zombie for fun. I only went down for a little bit because I didn't find much useful stuff. Every time I want to get iron, I find diamonds, so I made a boat and went on a search for useful resources. After a bit of sailing, I saw a cave underwater, so I got out of the boat and started exploring underwater with a door so I can breathe underwater. I spotted some cute axolotls, but I couldn't take one because I didn't have a bucket. But the diamonds I found did ease the pain. I finally got more iron, and I need that stuff badly. After the iron, I started to find a lot of diamonds everywhere. I was bored of mining, and I had enough resources for now, so I went back up and found the boat back, so I got back to the island. It was dark, so I immediately went to sleep. We officially survived the first 10 days of this hardcore, but we got a long road to go because I have to make this island a big island with a cozy base with everything I need. I went fishing for a bit, so I had some food for the next days. The iron was done melting, so I made new tools, and with the iron shovel I made, I gathered some dirt because the island needs to be bigger. For the rest of day 10, I was expanding the island. It slowly got dark, but I made sure I used all the dirt that I had in my inventory. You know what they say, you never have enough coal in your Minecraft chest. So I went on a search for coal. Because of the deep but clear water, it's easy to spot some coal in the side of underwater cliffs. You are never going to guess what I'm going to do next, but it is gathering dirt and making the island bigger again. The reason I need to make the island bigger is not only to have space to build big things, but also for new animals to spawn. Later on, we are going to need leather for bookshelves because I want to enchant my armor and tools in the future. I chopped down the trees from the tree farm and replanted the saplings. One important thing that I forgot to craft in the beginning is a shield, so I immediately made it. I again started farming dirt and expanded the island, so while you are watching me expand my island, I would like to ask you to like the video and subscribe if you are enjoying the video so far. Let's get back to the video. I have a lot of seeds now, so I planted them on the side of the island. It's already a much bigger farm now, and maybe we can start using it for bread. I went to sleep, and when I woke up, it was time to add some new decorations on the island. I started with a new part of the path, and then I built a ring of cobblestone around the farm. In the future, this farm is going to be a much bigger one, and I want to make a cobblestone wall around the whole farm, but for now, I'm only building the wall around this part. With some slaps and stairs, I'm giving the wall some more texture. This farm needs to be much bigger in the future, but for now, it's okay. I made the path a bit wider and cleaner, then I filled up the mine because when I need to go in the mines from now on, I will search caves underwater because they have much more resources. It is now time to make a full set of diamond gear. I skipped the iron gear part because I found the diamonds easier than the iron. I put on my new armor and chopped every tree from the tree farm with the new diamond axe. After cutting down the trees, it was time to break down the small house on the island, from head to toe. I started with all the wooden parts, then I went for the glass and then the floor. I replaced the floor with dirt, and now the island is clean again. Well, except for the tree farm. Can we get a rest in peace little house in the comments? Thank you. The next day, it was time to really collect a lot of dirt, because now is the time to really expand the island. I took the door into the water and started collecting dirt. I finally removed the tree farm because I'm going to have the space to grow the trees directly on the island once it's expended. When I finished removing the ugly tree farm, I went to sleep and started expanding the next day. This is going to be a long process. I started with an outline of how big I wanted the island to be. I want to make it look realistic, so there were a few curves in it. The outline is now done, and this is how it looks from above. Wow, super cool, amazing, so realistic. I knew I would have a lot of dirt left for this, so I went underwater again with the door to dig more dirt. I had collected a lot of dirt, so I could now start filling the island. I think it's time for an epic island fill compilation. So I have no more dirt, and it looks like this now. So I started digging and digging and digging and digging again. And then I went to sleep, but not for too long because it was time to fill up the island. I kept going because I knew that when it's filled up, then it's filled up. It even started to rain. I filled about 60% of the island so far. The dirt ran out again, so I dug some more dirt next to the island. It had become night, and my plan was to fill the last part of the island the next day. I dug some dirt out of the sea for the last time to finish the island. Of course, I wasn't done yet because there also needed to be elevations on the island. The island cannot remain flat, but the base of the island is now finally finished. No more dirt digging for now. I killed a skeleton that was in the way. The next day I placed new saplings for more trees and made a new shovel. I started the elevations on the island with the dirt I had left over from all the digging I had done, so the rest of the day was filling the island again. The first hill I was making was 2 blocks high because this will later become an area where I can build. I first placed the outline and then filled it with dirt. Once I was done with the first area, I made a path from the farm to the area that I just made. It is now time for the second area where I will make an increase. As I raise these areas a bit, I have to keep in mind that I need to leave enough room for houses, farms, and anything I want to build. The new land elevation soon became grass instead of dirt. By the end of day 21, I had completed about 2/3 of the elevations. I used bone meal and saplings to make the island look a bit more realistic. When I woke up, I took a good look at the beautiful work I had done in the last few days. But now it's time for a new project. The XP farm. I built up 128 cobblestone blocks and made a small platform. I was going to need a huge amount of stone, so I started collecting quite a bit of cobblestone. From now on, this is the cave where I will get all my stone. For the mob farm, I need a lot of things such as chests, hoppers, and carpets. I need slaps so that the mobs can't damage me, or even worse, that a creeper explodes. And I almost died in this clip. But that doesn't matter because almost isn't dead. I made a long cobblestone pipe that is 24 blocks high. Then I built platforms of 8 blocks on each sides of the pillar. That is the part where the water comes in and sends the mobs to the hole. Because the pillar is 24 blocks high, all mobs will have 1 heart when they fall into it. That way I can kill them all with 1 hit. That is the best way that I can farm XP right now. Of course I need that XP to enchant my tools and armor. I made the wheat farm a bit bigger and chopped all the trees down. Tree chop compilation. After I chopped every tree, it was time to sleep. It is now day 25, so we are now a quarter of the way through the process. This is what the island looks like now, and a lot still needs to be done. So it's important that I keep up this pace. The next day, I continued working on the mob farm. I placed trap doors so that mobs think there is a block, but then it's open and that causes all mobs to walk into the holes. I made a barrier and a roof on the platform so that the mob farm will always work. Now the place where they spawn is always dark. I placed the water, finished the roof, and placed torches on the roof so there will be no mobs on the room while I'm being busy with farming the mobs. If a creeper falls off the roof, I'm cooked. The last few torches were placed and now the mob farm is done. While I was busy adding water to the farm, I suddenly received a visit from a wandering villager. I was hoping for jungle saplings because I would eventually like to use jungle trees for decoration, but he didn't have them to trade. So I continued making the border for the wheat farm. I left one side of the boarding open for a mountain that I want to build against it. I made the sheep do dirty things and put cobblestone in the oven so that it would become regular stone. I can build the mountain with the normal stone. This gives the mountain a natural look. I started with the part of the boarding that was still open so that the villager will not walk over the wheat. The most important part is that there is a lot of definition in the mountain. If it looks too fake, it won't fit nicely between the buildings because it will feel like a big random block. I open a hole in the mountain because there will be a small cave here. The torches no longer looked nice, so it was now time to use lanterns. I replaced the torches on the fishing dock with lanterns and made a wooden post with lanterns at the farm. I took a quick look from above of the island. When I got to the mob farm, I tried a few things to see how I could get the mob farm to work. I tried it a few times and eventually I came up with the best solution. After I fixed it, I went back downstairs and placed a few lanterns on the boarding of the wheat farm. All day 30th, I was busy collecting sand, because the next thing that needs to be done is to build a beach around the island. This will give the island a desert island vibe, and of course it makes it look more cozy. The next day, I went into the water to go back to my cave and collect a lot of cobblestone. But before I could start collecting stone, I first had to knock this skeleton out of my cave. I'm going to need a lot of stone for the mountain. I also take all important resources that I find besides cobblestone with me, because I don't have much iron and coal. I had collected 12 stacks of cobblestone so I could continue for a while. I replanted the sugarcane and made a new diamond pickaxe. After doing this, I went into the water to collect some dirt. I needed this dirt to expand the island a little more and to make the island elevations a little bit wider so that I have enough space to build here. When I looked around, I thought that there were not enough island elevations yet. Some parts were still too flat, so I made a smaller elevation with the dirt I had left and a slightly wider one next to the mountain. I worked a little further on the mountain and took a look at what it looked like now. It already looked a lot better, but it's not finished yet. The next day, I made a chest for all the seeds and saplings. I made the sheep do dirty things again and made a stack of bread so I don't have to worry about starving to death anymore. I took the stone out of the furnace and continued working on the mountain. After working on this for a while, I started making a stone platform around the island. This platform had to be 1 block underwater because the sand that I collected a few days ago will be placed on it. This will be the beach around the island. I was almost done with the platform, but after I finished it, I wasn't going to put the sand on it right away. I first started by turning the mountain's hole into a real cave. It is important that it gets a natural look, so I turned it into a typical round cave. The next day, I started with the beach. I placed the sand on the platform, but first had a small fight with a zombie. I resumed and continued doing this for a while. I already started to see that this would give the island a real island atmosphere. I walked around the new beach and continued working on the mountain. The mountain is already starting to look good, and it now has more of a steep up mountain vibe. For the top of the mountain, I used dirt. This dirt will become grass within a while and will give the mountain a natural look. I still have to keep an eye on the fact that it still needs to be built on. It still looked a bit strange now because it is still normal dirt. I placed some sugarcane on the beach as decoration and used what I had left to make paper for books. I continued working on the cave. I removed the dirt and filled the floor with stone. I filled the last piece and took a look to see what it looked like. The cave is not ready yet because decorations still need to be added. I removed some trees because I will need them for the decorations later. Then I went to the mob farm for a while. The island was still a bit boring, so I made it a little more beautiful with some bone meal and saplings. There is now much more nature on the island. I also placed some saplings on the mountain, and then I started decorating the cave. I built a canopy and pillars with lanterns inside the cave. The pillars inside had to look like they were holding up the cave. So I made beams from one side to the other. Then I made a path outside the cave. The cave is now done, but I couldn't sit still for long because I had to go back into the mines to look for diamonds, coal, and iron. I went out on the water to find an underwater cave. I found almost every resource you can find in a cave. I passed several mine shafts and took everything I could take with me. But the real reason I'm here is for obsidian, because I am going to make an enchantment table with diamonds, obsidian, and a book, because it's time to upgrade my tools and armor, and be much faster in everything I do. I went back up and found the island again. When morning came, I looked at what I had collected and put it in a chest. I had the cows bred and started building the first official house on the island, which will remain standing. Rip Little House. I built a small place where I am going to keep the cows. I'm going to build the little house against it. This will be a small farmhouse. Here I will store everything that has to do with seeds, animals, or wood. A farmhouse will of course look best if it is made out of wood. First I built the foundation of the house, but before I knew it, it was night again. So I decided to continue with building the next day. I lured the cows to their spot and continued working on the pillars. It is very important that this house has a round shape. This really gives the house a farmhouse vibe. I made a frame in which I will place the glass. I make 2 large windows from the floor to the ceiling. This allows you to look from the inside at the cows and the rest of the island. I made a wooden path on the outside of the house. After I did that, it was time to make the floor. I wanted to do a special floor so that it is not all just wooden planks. I filled the floor with wooden logs. I made a pattern in it by leaving the blocks next to them open and placing the logs on their side next to the upright logs. Sounds difficult, but it makes perfect sense. I built the roof with wooden slabs and stairs. The roof will have a round and flat roof. I placed the last few slabs and the roof is now finished. I looked inside the house and it looked nice, but then this happened. The villager I needed the most. He got the jungle sapling, so before I bought the sapling, I placed the first lanterns in and outside the house, and then it was time to buy the sapling. Now that the sapling has been planted, I have to collect a huge amount of jungle saplings. I placed all the chests in the house on top of each other with just enough room to walk around them. There are now 6 large chests on both sides. All the farm stuff goes in here, but I also think I will use one chest for building blocks. There now had to be a path across the entire island. The path goes from one side of the wheat farm to the other side. Once I had done that, it was time to remove a lot of trees because there had to be room for the new jungle trees. The trees on top of the mountain were only there for a short time, but they also had to be removed. I left a few oak trees spread across the island because you also have them in a normal jungle biome. When I tried to remove several saplings from the tree, I only got one of them back. So with the new sapling I got, I planted a new tree and hoped that I would get more saplings from it. And that's what I got, so I planted the first tree with 4 saplings. In a tree like this, I can cut up in circles like a staircase. This is the easiest way to chop the entire tree and get the most saplings in a short time. I collected some vines from the tree and decorated the house with them. When these vines grow, they hang in front of the door and windows. I did the same at the mountain. This gives a nice jungle effect. I cut down the new tree with the trap tactic and waited for new saplings. The next day, I started with feeding the cows and planted a new tree. And of course, I cut it down immediately. I looked at the vines, and it was already starting to look nice. I had collected a lot of saplings, so I planted 3 large trees at once. I chopped them all and put carpet on the fences of the cow farm so I could get in easily. After I did that, it was time to make the enchantment table with the obsidian I collected in the cave. I placed it in my cave for a while because I haven't made room for it yet. It was time to release the axolotl on the island without it having a cage. I have no idea where it's going. I chopped down all the jungle trees on the island, and the next day I fed all the animals on the island, even the sheep. But before I forget, it's officially day 50, and this is what the island looks like now. There is still a lot to be done, but things are already getting off to a good start. I'm going to need quite a few cows to eventually make the bookshelves. I made an anvil for the cave and started the new construction project, my house. First, I made the layout of the house. Then I filled this with wooden planks. I made this 1 block higher so that the house is not level with the ground. After I had done this, it was time to make the pillars of the house. I didn't build all the pillars right away because it was night. I went to sleep first because I didn't want my house to be blown up by creepers already. So on day 51, I started building the rest of the pillars. This house will cost me a lot of wood because the walls are also made of wooden logs. I am going to sand them with the axe so that they will have a different color than the pillars. Because this house will be made of wood, I have to use a lot of things such as slaps, stairs, and fences to give the house as much decoration as possible. So I immediately did that to the windows, and I made a canopy at the door with stairs, slaps, and fences. I made a path out of wood and started filling the windows. I used thin glass because it gives the most definition to the house. I installed the 4 doors and took a look from the outside. After this, I went to sleep, and the next day it was time to continue with the house. I now started working on the 2nd floor. I filled the glass on the 2nd floor and filled the base of the roof. I wanted 2 large windows on both sides, so it took some figuring out how to do that. The roof will be a pointed roof, so I used the stairs to make such a roof. I just couldn't finish the house, so I finished it the next day. I installed the last few stairs and decorated the outside of the house with vines. When these grow, the house gets a jungle-like vibe. I placed the last 2 at the back of the house and then admired the house from a distance. Now I'm going to start with the inside. I built a staircase with simple stairs so that I can place a chest under the stairs. I made the 2nd floor out of slabs and placed a fence around the hole from the stairs. I decorated the outside of the house with lanterns. And then I placed them on the inside. It started to look very cozy, so I thought of putting a few loose lanterns along the path. The house is finally completely finished, so I took some time to admire it, but not for too long because I had to continue working again. I planted many saplings spread across the island. Some I will use for new saplings, and some of them are just going to stand there for the rest of the 100 days because they look good. I planted a new one to cut down immediately and repeated this a few times. I killed some cows for leather, and then it was time to sleep in the house for the first time. I used the mob spawner for a while and planted a new tree and then cut it down again and repeated this process for a while. I'm going to have to do this quite often because I want the entire island to be full of jungle trees at the end of the 100 days. After chopping trees for a while, I killed some more cows to eventually make bookshelves. The next day I started with some coal mining and then I enchanted my bow. I started collecting stone because I soon wanted to start making an enchanting house. I want to build that house with stone bricks. So I'm going to need a lot of rock to melt down. Because the stone needs to be melted down, I made a number of furnaces that I placed in the cave. After they were all installed, I made books with the leather of all the cows that had been killed. I immediately converted these books into bookshelves. I dug out the layout of the enchanting house, and before I went to bed, I made a small place for flowers at the front of my house. I placed a ring of stone bricks around the hole and filled the floor with wooden logs. After they were all placed, I sanded them with an axe. I made the wall a lot higher and started with building the pillars around the building. They still had to be 1 block higher, so I placed an extra wooden log on the pillars. The enchantment house had to be round, so I used slabs to make the house look rounder by placing slabs in each corner. I built the roof with wooden jungle slabs, and around the roof I made a stone edge for definition. I gave the house some extra support pillars and went to sleep. But the house wasn't ready yet, so I continued straight away. I finished the roof the same way I did the farmhouse. I placed a lantern between the 2 doors. It was still very empty on the inside, so I started decorating the inside with slabs and lanterns. I have to remember that space still needs to be left for the enchantment table and the bookshelves. I placed some fences on the inside and outside of the house, and after I did that, it was time to move the enchantment table. It's kind of crazy that an enchantment table gets a whole house, but of course it is an important house. The bookshelves looked weird, so I made 2 extra to make it look a little bit better. I placed the anvil and the chest for lapis in the house and completed all the paths on the island. Then I went to kill some mobs at the mob farm for bone meal and continued to do this for the rest of the evening. Now that I have the enchantment table with all the books, it is of course also time to enchant the tools. So I crafted new tools that I could enchant. There is no grass yet on top of the mountain. It is still pure dirt, so I built a staircase of dirt up the mountain so that the grass could grow up those stairs and thus also give grass to the mountain. I decorated the island using bone meal and leaves. I placed some new trees and then I called it a day. I took a look at the stairs and grass was already starting to grow on them. The farm still looked a bit bare, so I placed wooden pillars around the farm. With flowering azalea, I made nature on the island a little more diverse. It is now time to start the new construction project, the watchtower. I'm going to build this here on the mountain. There is very little space here, so I had to improvise a bit. I built a balcony where I can eventually see over the entire island. I decorated the tower to make it as round as possible, and with fences I made it look like the balcony is hanging from the tower. I left 2 blocks open so that I have an extra entrance there. At the bottom of the balcony I built 2 support beams. I fed the cows and looked from a distance to see what the tower looked like now. It was starting to look good, but it's certainly not finished yet. I went back into the tower to finish it further. I made an extra floor with slabs and tried to build a round window on that floor. For the tower, I didn't use glass, but fences. This gives the tower more of a medieval look. After I had made the second floor, I continued to build the part that concerns a watchtower. The next day, I looked from a distance at the tower that was almost finished, and I immediately went back up the mountain to finish it. I finished the roof with slabs and it was done for now. Of course, it is not completely finished yet because lanterns still need to be placed on it. I went chopping trees for a while, decorated the house a little more, and took a quick look at the tower. Then I went back to chopping trees. I will have to do this often and it will cost me quite a lot of time. I finished chopping for a while, so I started on the next build. What I'm going to build now will be a place where the sheep can chill. I'm not going to put all the sheep in here because I also want wild animals to roam the island. When I wanted to sleep, I had to sleep in the enchantment house because there were mobs at the house. The next day I killed a zombie with full gear. I made charcoal with wooden logs and wooden planks. And after I did that, it was finally time to spread lanterns around the tower. I placed them on the balcony, on the inside and on top of the tower. After I had done this, it was time to continue building the sheep's house. Once I had placed the fences, I finished the roof with wooden slabs in the same round shape as the farmhouse. I placed torches on the inside for a change. Now, not everything on the island has lanterns. I took all the wheat from the farm and planted new seeds. I needed the wheat to make hay bales because I want to use them for decoration at the farmhouse. I placed them in a natural way and it looked great. It is now time to attract the sheep to their new home. I only brought 2 sheep into the farm, but the third also wanted to join, and that is not allowed. I made a path from the house to the sheep house and stood at the mob farm for the rest of the day. The next day, I started at the mob farm and then started chopping trees. I cut down a few large trees and immediately replanted them, only to take them down later. I decorated for a while, and I placed a big tree on the mountain for decoration. The front of the island was still bare, so I'm going to make a small harbor here. I am going to make this harbor in the same style as the jetty on the other side of the island, only this one will of course be a lot bigger. In the morning, I continued with the port. I made the pillars from wooden logs and I made them reach the bottom of the sea. I made the harbor in the shape of an L and placed some fences between the posts. This harbor will give a good atmosphere to the island. Even though I can't go anywhere with a boat because everything is just a harbor, it still gives a cozy atmosphere to the island. I placed lanterns on the poles and connected the path to the harbor. I made it look natural and then I dug a hole in the ground next to my house. I'm going to make a water well here. I collected some cobblestone and made the pit 6 blocks deep. I gave the pit beautiful shapes with slabs and stairs. The water well is a fairly simple water well, but that doesn't matter. We don't need a very extensive well either. I placed 2 boats at the brand new harbor and made sure they were placed in the best looking way because they weren't going to be used anyway. After I had done this, I chopped some more trees and decorated the island with bushes made of leaves. I enchanted 2 diamond swords and made them together into one good sword. Once I had done that, I immediately went to test the sword at the mob farm. After standing at the mob farm for a while, it was time to go to sleep. In the morning, the grass stairs had grown over half. I combined 2 good bows and made a campfire to create a cozy campfire spot. I made the seating areas with wooden logs, and with a few stones, I made the campfire spot nice and cozy. The campfire spot was quickly ready, so for the rest of the day I decorated the island with bone meal, leaves, and a new tree. The next morning I looked around the island and I see it all coming together nicely. I went into the water to look at the island from a distance. I chopped some trees and then started building a simple tree farm on the side of the island. Now I don't have to chop trees on the island anymore, but now I can just come here and plant and cut the trees. The island started to become very green and the grass stairs to the mountain were almost at the top. 1 more block and grass will start growing on the mountain. I used the mob farm for the rest of the day and made a ton of bone meal. The next day I made all the jungle trees grow, and after I did that I chopped them down. I collected all the saplings and then I started looking for a nice spot for a new jungle tree and decided to place the tree behind the mountain so that it looks like the island has a dense jungle. I decorated the back of the mountain. The next morning I repeated the same process on the trees. But when I looked around the island I found some places still a bit barren. I decided to make a small atmosphere build next to the cow farm. I decided to make a pond, but a natural one. I'm going to make a small rock out of stone with a little pond where I'm going to put some tropical fish. I went into the sea to catch a fish and brought it back to the pond. It became night, so I went to sleep. When I woke up, I started farming new saplings. I spent the rest of the day doing this. It is now time for a new build on the island. This new build will be a bit difficult because the entire island is already full of houses and trees. But I do need these stairs so I can easily get to the watchtower. I tried to build the stairs between the trees without having to chop any trees. I built pillars in various places on the bridge so that it looks like they are holding the bridge up. I'm still not done collecting saplings because the entire island has to be completely filled with jungle trees in 21 days. So on day 79, I chopped trees all day. It is day 80 and I am going to fill the bare spots on the island with lanterns. Not the normal lanterns, but with street lanterns. For these street lanterns, I use stone brick, stair doors, fences, and normal lanterns. I'm not going to show you one by one how I'm going to make all these street lanterns because that would take too long. So that's why I'm just showing that I'm hanging the lanterns on them. They look great. After I had done this, I continued chopping and planting trees. On day 81, I looked around for a while from the watchtower. The island was already coming together well. For the rest of the day, I used the mob farm. On day 82, I decided to give the island some more different decorations by planting potatoes and expanding the tree stumps in the water at the back of the island. This makes it look a little more natural. It now looks like they are growing underwater. The next day, I placed a new large tree from which I had already made the tree stump. After I did this, I went all over the island placing small jungle trees everywhere. The pond didn't look quite right yet, so I broke the floor to place sand, but the fish both escaped. So I made sure that both the same fish went back into the pound. You can't escape me. After the fish were back in the pound, I made the island a little more beautiful with bone meal and trees. On day 85, I placed a small puddle of water next to the potatoes, and the next day I stood at the mob farm all day. I didn't do anything else. I found out that I haven't enchanted my armor even once. So what I was going to do was enchant all my gear at the last minute. It's no longer useful, but it does look cool. There were too many cows, so I killed more than half of them to make it look nicer. Sorry, cows. Day 88. I placed lanterns on the mountain and planted trees with bone meal. This is the last tree that will be planted on this island. There is one more build I want to work on before we hit day 100. I grabbed my wood and made slabs and stairs. I went to the harbor and started building. I'm going to make a small boat in the harbor. I made the surface of the boat. This boat will be the icing on the cake of the island, the official latest build. I made the shape of the boat with the slabs and stair. This prevents it from becoming a blocky boat. I built the flagpole, and the next day I made the roof and tip of the boat. I gave the boat a little more detail and placed a chest in the house. I used the chest to store away some wood and stuff like that. I built the back of the boat and placed a fence gate as a door on the boat. From a distance, the boat starts to look quite like a boat. I sheared the sheep and removed the tree farm because I don't need it anymore. I sheared the sheep because I need the wool for the sail of the boat. I made some golden apples because they will look nice in my inventory. After I did that, I finished the boat by adding more wool to the sail. The last build on the island is now officially done. Over the next 3 days, I demolished the ugly mob farm. That looks much better. I had nothing else to do on the island, so I chilled at the tip of the boat until day 99. It is now day 99, and I am going to sleep on this island for the last time. And when I wake up, it will be day 100, and the challenge will be completed. The challenge is now finished, and this is what the island looks like. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a comment. This video took a lot of time, so if you did enjoy it, please subscribe and like too. Until the next video.